Welcome to the Sage Women podcast, hosted by Melanie White and Dr. Nick Engera. We have real conversations with real women, health professionals, and coaches who share stories about perimenopause, menopause, and a range of women's health issues. Please subscribe so you get the latest updates every fortnight.
Hi there, it's Melanie White on the Sage Women podcast. I'm really excited to introduce today Romy Bursztyn, who is one of our consultants and is a Melbourne-based registered integrative nutritionist, a professional accredited women's health and wellness coach, a perimenopause and menopause coach, body image coach, and a workshop presenter with more than 22 years of experience working in the nutrition and health industry. Romy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for asking me to join you. I love being here and I love being part of the Sage Women's Health team.
Thanks, Romy. And I'm really excited to hear a bit of your story, to share some of your background and why you do the work you do, and talk about the types of clients that you work with, and really let people know what it's like working with menopausal women and what sorts of outcomes and results they can get with the right approach. Does that sound like an okay outline for today?
Yep, sure. So I would call myself an integrative nutritionist, and I've been working in this space for an integrative nutritionist as well as women's health coach, menopause coach, etc. Working in this space, I guess, most of my adult life, and my nutrition story and health coaching story has really evolved, I guess, as I have evolved over the last few decades. I think when I first started with nutrition, I was freshly married. I was thinking about my own journey ahead and my fertility and upcoming fertility. So I got very passionate about that. And I became a nutritionist that works with women in the fertility space. Then when I started having my kids, I started working in children's nutrition, which tends to be, I guess, when you have that interest yourself, you tend to get really curious in that space and you want to learn as much as you can. So I was working in that space. And then as my children were growing up, I was interested in children's nutrition. And I started a business called Healthy Tummies. And I was working in schools teaching primary age children about what a healthy lifestyle looks like, the foundations of nutrition and how to look after their bodies. And then I guess as I evolved, I went into this kind of busy mum era where I worked with a lot of busy women and how to do the juggle between busy work life, busy mum life, and being able to nourish your family at home and make it all happen in a really simple and non-complex way through, feeding the family. And then I hit my own pre-menopause, perimenopause era, and I became very curious about that. And let's just say I opened a Pandora's box with that. And that's where I find myself now. And I'm really passionate about this space and helping women in the menopause space. Because as you would know, 5-10 years ago and beyond, like menopause was not in the spotlight at all. It was not discussed at all. I didn't know anything about it when I first started my perimenopause journey, and it made me become extremely curious about what is going on from a physiological point of view with me. And it also made me realize that it's not discussed and it's not spoken about, and there's not enough information, and we need to get this information out. So I guess my own perimenopause journey was that, when we're busy women and our body is giving us whispers that there are changes happening.
Yes.
But I ignored them, as you do when you're busy. And eventually in my early 40s, I noticed that I was feeling different. My menstrual cycle was changing. It was getting longer. I was losing a lot of blood, and I was, as a result, becoming iron deficient, B12 deficient. There was so much going on. I was exhausted from the fatigue, but I just, soldiered on. I went to the doctor. I told them about my symptoms. They said, yeah, okay, well, you can go on the pill. or you can, take some medication to not bleed as much. And they were the options presented to me at the time. There was no discussion about this could be perimenopause, or there was just nothing discussed through the menopause lens. So I went on with life and soldiered on and just kind of dealt with it.
Sorry, Romy, how long ago was this?
This was my early 40s. So I'm 49 now. So probably 7 years ago.
Right. Okay.
Again, menopause wasn't very much in the spotlight in those days. It wasn't really discussed even with the doctors that I saw. And then fast forward to I was about 45, 46, and more changes started happening. And they were then cognitive changes. And I noticed that I was getting forgetful, and I was forgetting people's names. I was forgetting what I was saying mid-sentence. I was doing that typical going into a room, what did I come in here for?
Yeah.
And I just felt like, what the hell is going on? I thought I was getting early dementia. I didn't know what was going on. And then I started asking questions. I started getting curious, because at that point, I still hadn't studied perimenopause or menopause myself. And I went, okay, I need to learn more about what is going on. And I ended up going back to a gynecologist who was informed about menopause and perimenopause, and she helped me. And she helped me with some menopause hormone treatment. And I balanced myself out. And since then, I have been feeling really great and very balanced. And I've got my clarity back, and I've got my memory back, and I'm not bleeding and losing all my iron and stuff like that. So it was a journey. But then I realized no one's talking about this. We need to know more about what's going on with women. And I did my own deep dive into some courses and furthered my studies in perimenopause and menopause to become a certified practitioner in this space from a diet and lifestyle perspective. So working within my scope of practice to help women who are navigating this transition, and to help them, I guess, educate them as well about what is happening to their body from an anatomy point of view and a physiology point of view. Because yes, we can say, okay, these are the symptoms you'll get, but why are you getting them and what's causing them? And I think when women have that knowledge and that power, it's so much easier to transition through. Anyway, I've just blabbered on.
No, I love that backstory, Romy. It's really relevant and interesting. I guess a question I have about your own journey was how your experience of perimenopause for the years before that you received treatment, what were you struggling with on a day-to-day basis? Like, how was that affecting your relationships, your work, and those sorts of things?
Well, I think my biggest red flag symptom for me, as I said earlier, was the very heavy bleeding for me. And I just was having back-to-back periods, and I knew my periods were abnormal. I knew my mum had gone through the same thing when she was in her early 40s, but in those days, they just ripped out your uterus. Like, she had a hysterectomy in her early 40s, and that was it. She was put into a surgical menopause and HRT, and there was not really any more discussion about it. I guess maybe I had the same genetics as her and I went through the same experience, but they don't do that these days as quickly. So I just had that experience, and I just felt like I was constantly menstruating. I think it was the fatigue that came with the iron loss and the B12 deficiency that really impacted me the most. So my energy levels were extremely low. I was very tired all the time, and I felt like I was very much on half-mast, and that didn't feel right. And then when the cognitive symptoms came through for me, which was the brain fog, the memory loss, and the mood as well, because I felt flat, I think, because I was so tired, and my energy was very low, and I also didn't understand it. That was the time where I was like, this is just like not the way to live. I need to do something about this.
Yeah, I think the story you're telling is one I hear a lot, and you probably do too. It's this exhaustion, and that heavy bleeding is something I had too. And it's concerning when it goes on and on and on, and you think, when's this going to end? I describe menopause as a bit like the pandemic. You don't know how long it's going to last, how bad is it going to get, and when's it going to finish. There's a lot of uncertainty, isn't there, with menopause? And so, Romy, tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing now, in different capacities with women in this space.
Yeah, so I work, so I have private practice that I run out of 2 different clinics in Melbourne. And they're slightly different, the way my approach in each, well, the approach is the same, but the programs we offer are slightly different. So I have a private practice in Armidale where I see predominantly women. I do see men as well. I am not exclusively only seeing perimenopausal or menopausal women, but I do tend to sort of see a lot of that demographic. And they tend to come to me because, well, I mean, I don't like to use this word, but I'll use the word, that they feel like they've been gaslit, I guess, by their doctors and by their medical practitioners, because they have gone presenting a number of symptoms that they think must be perimenopause or menopausal symptoms, and their doctors have always just gone, you'll be right, or that's normal, or, kind of, yeah, that's normal, just deal with it. And some of these symptoms are really, really challenging to just have that approach of, you'll be right, she'll be right, mate, or, and I also know that a lot of the doctors out there, they haven't been trained in this space. And I know this because I've had multiple conversations with doctors. It's not just feedback from clients, but I myself have had multiple conversations with GPs who tell me that there is no training or minimal training, maybe a lecture during med school. And unless that doctor has special interest in women's health or menopausal health and study it post, obviously, their medical degree, then they tend to just not look through that lens at all when they've got midlife women coming to see them. And I almost think that midlife women need their own medical category, because they are not like men who are the same age, and they're also not like women who are younger, or, that they really have got a lot of physiological changes that are natural, but they need to be factored in when looking through a medical lens as to how could their menopausal changes be impacting their current symptoms. So a lot of the women that are coming to see me in the private practice, they've gone to their doctors who haven't looked through that menopause lens, and they haven't given them satisfactory solutions for them, and they're seeking further information because they know that I can educate them about it, and work through a diet and lifestyle approach to help them, and then help triage the medical system with them and guide them as to who the best doctor might be to see, or other allied health specialist. So I see them one-to-one at this stage, because I feel like everyone's situation is very individual and personalized.
Very unique.
Very unique. And that's, at the moment, like, that's where I feel like people want my help. Like, I know there are amazing group programs out there for women, but I feel like the women that come to me need that one-on-one nurturing, hand-holding, support, guidance, whatever that is. So that's what I offer. I do have a program that I offer called My Magnificent Midlife, which is a 3-month program or a 6-month program, depending on how much support the client really is seeking. And we really focus on a lot of the different pillars of women's health at midlife and make sure that we are optimizing each area. And so that's what I do in my private practice in Armidale. And at NIM, the National Institute of Integrative Medicine, which is where I also work every week, that's based in Hawthorn. So I do see patients there in a similar capacity to what we offer, or what I offer in my private practice. But we also offer some amazing programs there as well. And one that we just recently launched last month is actually called the Holistic Women's Health Check Midlife Mastery. And what I love about that is that we are giving a holistic offering, which includes 2 appointments with an integrative general practitioner who specialises in women's health, as well as 2 appointments with me where I focus on the diet and lifestyle. So you get the medical and the diet and lifestyle complementary combination together when you go in, and you can have a thorough consultation with the doctor first, and she will work out with you medically what tests might be required, what scans might be required, and she'll do the medical, look through the medical lens as to what's going on with you and what your goals are. And then they will see me about learning about the physiological side about what's going on, and also the nutrition and lifestyle approaches that are available to them based on what their circumstances are and their symptoms are. So the Midlife Mastery Program is a 2-day approach where you come in for 1 day and you see the doctor first, and then you'll see me. And then based on whatever tests you might be required to have, the doctor will write you the scripts for those. You will go off and have them. Plus, with me, we will give you some starting strategies to get going with your goals. And then you'll come back 1 month later. You'll see the doctor about your test results and what they mean and what the options are, whether it's supplementation, whether it's menopause hormone treatment or nothing, or what basically what the options are there from a medical lens. And then you will come and see me based on those results, and we will make a plan for you based on those results and your goals and your symptoms to go off and put some of those strategies in place as well. And then if they want to, they can come back and see us for follow-up appointments as well. So slightly different offerings, but the same outcome, where we're hoping that women can advocate for their own health and get some successful outcomes and understand what's happening with their body and how to support their body through this very important and beautiful chapter of their life.
I'm hearing that you're filling a very important gap, and we know from the coming Senate inquiry that was instigated by Senator Larissa Waters that there is a bit of a disconnect with health professionals working in silos. So I love that you're in an integrative clinic and working alongside other practitioners, and then the other part is giving people a complete view of all of the options that they have for their own unique circumstances. It's a great model to go forward with, and I think that's what's missing generally. And I'm interested to know, Romy, what sorts of results women get after they've worked with you for a period of time.
Yeah, so I think that the women that work, so the Midlife Mastery at NIM, we have recently launched. And whilst we've seen a number of clients where I can't give you the success outcomes yet because they haven't come back for their second appointment.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll be able to speak to that in the next month or so as to where they're going. In terms of the private clients that I have, it's interesting because they often come to me thinking, I guess, with a plan to discuss nutrition. They know I'm a nutritionist and a health coach, but people often want to come to talk about food, and maybe their goal is weight loss, especially with midlife women. One of the major symptoms that they are coming to see me about is that this unexplained, unexpected, unwelcome weight gain that they have experienced, especially around the belly. So they come to me thinking Romy is going to give me a plan to lose weight, to feel better and to feel energized and whatever. It doesn't work like that with me because I am very much integrative and holistic in my approach. And I explain to them that food is just one part of the whole equation, and that, there's so many other important jigsaw pieces in that health equation in order to feel and function at your best. So we do a deep dive into nutrition, obviously, but also movement and meeting their body where their body is at, and how to therefore also get the right outcomes for them based on what their goals are through movement. But also sleep, the importance of restorative and optimizing sleep, the importance of managing your nervous system and managing your stress. And the other, like a lot of our discussions are around like having a life purpose. Like women are at that stage of life where they have maybe their children have got older, they're and maybe they're looking after aging parents, maybe they are in the workforce in high pressure jobs or not. They're often running their domestic world, all that. There's a lot of stuff going on in their life and their lifestyle, and a lot of that is actually impacting and having an impact on their health and ultimately their symptoms as well. So we do kind of a deep dive in. It's kind of like a whole life approach, not just focusing solely on nutrition. And what I find that, people that come and see me, my plan is to educate them and empower them for themselves, to have all the tools in the toolkit to go off and live their best life and be the best versions of themselves. Yeah. And the feedback I have got from clients is that is what I empowered them with, is that education, that knowledge, understanding that it doesn't have to be so complicated to look after your body. You just have to have the right tools in your toolkit to understand what to do and how to do it, and to also understand that life will get in the way, as it always does. And then what can we do to get back on the bandwagon? And and people that come to me, they know I'm not a quick fix. Like, I'm not the diet detox, I'm not the quick fix approach. So I'm not necessarily for everyone, but what I'm really about is education, empowerment, knowledge, giving them as much information as I have in my brain to give them, so that they can go and advocate for themselves and also ripple out to other people in their lives as well. So the success stories are that, I've had people who have had elevated cholesterol, elevated, blood sugar markers, inflammation in the body, and, through an integrative approach, not just a nutrition, but also optimizing their sleep and getting moving and managing stress. And through that integrative approach, they have managed to normalize all of those levels back to really healthy levels. If it has been weight loss as their goal, or weight gain as their goal, or muscle gain as their goal, whatever it is, we have been able to successfully implement strategies as well to help them achieve their goals slowly. It's been a slow approach. And I think that is where you get your greatest success, is when you do things one after the other, you build on healthy habits, and you'll get to your goals maybe slower, but you'll get there with so much knowledge and information around, this, that you can do it yourself and you can go and live your healthy life and hopefully have long health span.
Yeah, it's so much about healthy habits, isn't it? And that's the slower approach, knowing that habits don't change overnight, but they are the way to sustaining the changes. I mean, anyone can do a detox program, but what happens at the end of that? You actually have to make life changes, the way that you manage stress, the way that you manage your time. Like for me, I realized during and after menopause that I just didn't have the capacity that I used to have. I had to change the way I worked. I had to reduce the number of appointments. I had to make more time for fun. And if I didn't do that, I would suffer the consequences of severe symptoms coming back. Yeah. And I think it's a hard lesson to learn for those of us who've been a bit defiant about menopause and saying, well, I'm too busy to deal with that, or, well, that's not happening to me. We can't take that approach because it is such a huge time of change, not just in our bodies, but in our emotional state, in our mind, in our careers, in our personal lives. It's like this perfect smash of everything changing at once. And no wonder women lose confidence, especially when their bodies are doing these things that they aren't used to and don't understand.
And I think there's a little clue in the word menopause that most of us ignore.
Yeah.
And that is that word pause. And I think even though it has a different meaning, it's about your periods coming to an end, your monthly periods coming to an end. But that word, to pause, is really powerful, because I think women have always just done. They just do. They just go all the time. And they don't stop enough to just pause and take a breath and take stock of, where am I at? Am I on the right trajectory for myself? Where am I going? And I think I do have some beautiful conversations around that concept of, let's use this time as a moment to stop and to breathe and to think and to give yourself space and to adapt and to adjust. And, we've got this beautiful next chapter. Women 100 years ago didn't live as long as they do today. And they would go through menopause, and soon after, they were, the end of life was coming soon after, not necessarily straight after, but soon after.
Yeah.
But now women are living 40, even potentially 50 years of their life post-menopause. And, we have the opportunity to make this a really beautiful, fulfilling, meaningful chapter of our lives. And it really comes down to taking control of our health and well-being, and being as feeling as good as we can, and feeling and functioning as well as we can, so that we can do all of those things into our, later years. So what we do now, even just to give ourselves that permission to pause, reflect, change and adjust and adapt what we need to, because our bodies aren't what they used to be when they were 20 and 30. We can really set ourselves up for success for the next number of decades. But it does, I believe, come down to a huge amount of education within the medical system. I feel like there's a massive gap there. I really do. Yeah. I've even gone in to a couple of medical centres myself to do an education session for the GPs on the topic of perimenopause and menopause, because they simply don't have the tools. They're incredible doctors. They have amazing knowledge, but they don't specialise in menopause or perimenopause. So they actually have loved to hear from someone that does, to really understand, as I said, the physiology, why things happen, why their patients are getting certain symptoms. And whilst they will deal with the medical options, I was able to give them some really great nutrition and lifestyle tools that they could then support their patients with as well. So, I am having conversations with a lot of GPs at the moment about the lack of knowledge, and that gives them a lack of confidence too. Plus they have a lack of time. I mean, 15 minutes and through the door. I mean, you don't have time as a doctor to really engage and speak to your patients about all their symptoms and explain to them where it might have come from and what their options are. And, so this is where people like us and Sage Women's Health and health coaches and women's health coaches that have studied menopause and perimenopause can be an amazing asset to the medical and allied health system, because we do know about these things and we can support people in this space through education, whether it's with the medical or allied health space or with the patients and the public themselves.
And it's really is making those connections as one of the primary roles, because we're hearing a lot of people talking about the fact that women's health historically hasn't been well studied in clinical trials. We're seeing symptoms being treated in isolation, siloed, not recognising the cluster of symptoms that makes up both menopause and aging, and still the debate about what's menopause and what's aging, or are they, what's the intersection?
And are they linked?
And the ability that the work that you're doing, drawing in a number of different medical and allied health professionals to gain that understanding and to work together is so important. And I think will give women the confidence that they're being listened to and heard and understood and treated appropriately, because there's nothing worse than going to a doctor who can't answer a simple question. Like me, is this normal? No answer, but deflected.
Yeah. And it is tough. It's tough for the doctors, but it's very frustrating for the patients to not have those answers with their doctors. So, there's a lot to be done in this space.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully, fast forward 10 years, they'll be having menopause conferences all over the world where all the doctors will be going and allied health specialists and learning about this really important transition.
Yeah, and women will also be learning to reach out for support and know where to go to get help too. It's all of those pieces coming together, and we're all a part of that movement towards better outcomes and better health outcomes.
Yeah.
Romy, before we wrap up today, it's been really interesting hearing about what you're doing and hearing your perspectives. Are there one or two things that, I know everyone's unique, but are there one or two things that most women could benefit from in terms of managing their own symptoms?
Well, I would say the first thing would be, honestly, is find yourself a medical professional that listens and that validates and that cares. I think that is one of the biggest gaps I see at the moment, is that women are just not feeling like their symptoms are validated. And there are people out there. There are definitely doctors out there, and there are allied health specialists out there, and there are knowledgeable coaches and other organisations out there that do understand and do listen and do have solutions for you if you're experiencing symptoms. So do your research and find practitioners and organisations that do work in this space, because they can support you. And no one should have to suffer through any symptoms without understanding that there's always a root cause for your symptoms. And once you can understand that, then you can have some strategies on how to manage them better or treat them better. What would be my other go-to? I mean, there are so many out there in my little top tips, but I would say the next one would be, so the first one is kind of advocate for yourself and find the right medical or health practitioner that does listen and does understand. And the other part of that equation is prioritize you. As women, we are natural nurturers. We seem to prioritize every single other person and every other activity in the world other than ourselves. We often put ourselves at the bottom of the list. So if your body, as I said earlier, like your body whispers signals to you, and if you ignore them, it will scream and you'll end up getting sick, or you'll end up having some health issues. So, listen to your body, prioritize yourself. If something doesn't feel right in your body, then it's probably not. So look after yourself, prioritize yourself, and then go and get the support that you very much deserve.
Two very good tips, Romy. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Pleasure. I loved having a chat with you.
We're going to put some links to you in the notes for this episode, the show notes, so people can get in touch if they want to know more about the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on board and on this podcast. And thank you.
Thanks, Romy. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.